This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs, the Playbook. And here we are at SoFi and two dads sitting here, Marc D'Amelio, or Marc D'Amelio, if we were in Italy, which I just got back from. Welcome to the Playbook.
Thanks for having me, man. This is awesome.
You know, life takes twists and turns. And I always say in football, where my original profession came from, that our skills and knowledge determine our basement. So even when I lost everything, I wasn't worried because I had gained skills and knowledge through all the things that I had done. And so my basement was very high, even though I lost everything. But it's our desire that determines our potential. And we see that in quarterbacks especially. Some of the greatest quarterbacks may not have the greatest skills or knowledge, but they have extraordinary desire. And here you are in the entertainment world, in the branding world, one of the leaders in branding, something I'm so interested in because I call it the community world. A brand is a community today. How much do you attribute to desire? Because you're obviously great acumen in skills and knowledge of branding, but there's this huge frequency or desire component to branding today. How much do you attribute your success and your kids' success and your brand's success to desire?
That's an interesting question because I think my desire, just so you know, I started off in the sports apparel business. I worked with, right out of college, and I worked with Pro Player and then Mitchell & Ness. So I had a lot of desire in my career to help build brands. When I started with Mitchell & Ness, they're owned by Adidas. They're doing $5 million. They do about, they sold for $250 million a couple months ago. So I've had a lot of desire to get where I am, but as it relates to this, it hasn't been a ton of desire. It's been a lot of just trying to figure it out, because for you to have desire, or for desire to mean something, you kind of have to have a goal in mind. And when you're going through this thing a million miles a minute, we didn't even know if it was a business. So we had no goals in mind. And then as it started to get more comfortable, and I know you want to touch on D'Amelio Brands, that now is kind of refueling my desire to be like, okay, we can take what I've learned through my first 30 years of my career, and then what I've learned over the last 2 years with social media and all that's happened with the girls, and kind of meld the two together and create something that's really cool. So I do have that desire and that energy for business back, which I haven't had for a couple of years.
And adaptability is a skill that I find that our age, our situational knowledge is a huge advantage. That we have a different perspective than the people that think they know what they know. And especially in social media, the lessons that I've learned, I've had an infinite amount of patience comparatively, where, a lot of different people marketing, building brands, solutions, services in the social media space, the immediate moniker of, well, do this because I know this. And well, there's like a trillion variables. Yeah. And I'm a math person. And so adaptability, which relies on your experience, is super important. But yet you're dealing with young girls like I am, and patience probably isn't their greatest characteristic as young as they are, which I totally understand. Yeah. How do you balance the wisdom of, knowing there is no certainty to what we're doing, that I just have to kind of test and go and make the best choices I can, and maybe have some faith that things will happen for the best, compared to a lot of people in the space are experts at what I don't know, but put themselves forth as experts. How do you reconcile that when your girls are coming to you and go, but this, I'm sure this will, or the things that we all have to deal with as dads, but now it's really big business?
Yeah, I think what I try to instill in them is I have what they don't have. I have years. So I've seen, Charlie D'Amelio and Dixie D'Amelio see themselves. I'll throw names at you, Christy McNichol, all these people that we grew up with in the 70s,
right?
The Happy Days. And there were hundreds of Charlie D'Amelios before Charlie D'Amelio. So my job is to try to find out what they're passionate about, try to create longevity, because I think as we create longevity, they're both so young that they don't know what makes them happy, what makes them tick, and it's a tough balance, because people seem to think that I look at this as the goose that laid the golden egg, and it's And it's anything but that. I obviously recognize the opportunity, and we've done very well as a family because of the opportunity. But sometimes my battle is pushing too hard or not pushing enough. When are they just being, Dad, I don't want to do my homework? Or when is it, hey, the stress of 150 million eyeballs on me is too much? So I try to lead with my perspective of being 54 years old and give them advice from that and say, look, this is, what do they say? Like a lot of people get upset when people come and ask them for autographs, but they get more upset when no one asks them for an autograph.
Yeah.
And I understand there's a period of time we could extend it, but Charlie's not going to be the most famous kid on TikTok, and she already isn't, but there's going to be other things happening.
Yeah, you've been blessed to be around some of the biggest athletes in the world. When I ran Lee Steinberg and Warren Moonby, my business partner, one of my favorite moments that I reflect upon with a lot of the younger people in social media is we went to the Ohio State Rose Bowl against Washington. And Warren Moon's probably the most famous Washington football alumnus. He beat Michigan as a big underdog. And so that game, he was Charlie. Right? There's no one in the stadium that didn't know who he was. There was no one that didn't want his autograph or his picture or his selfie. And on the way out at halftime, he left early. He thinks it's because people were bothering him. I know it's because Ohio State was kicking his ass, and I'm an Ohio State fan. So I know the truth.
Right on.
But we're walking out, and some person comes, and you've probably had to deal with this with your daughters, V-lining towards him. So I stepped in front. Not that I'm physically, going to stop anyone, but at least to say, hey, can I help you? And the guy hugs me. He's like, dude, Dave Meltzer, I love your content. And after Warren's been annoyed for the entire game, I get that one person, which is awesome, right? He goes, Dave, you're perfectly famous. So as your girls and other brands lose some of the extreme notoriety, there is some blessings that come along with that as well. What types of things do you look for the future? Because obviously you're seeing, we don't need to do these certain things again and again. And you mentioned Happy Days, and I'm blessed to be friends with Henry Winkler, who got stuck into an iconic stage. It cost him, and he's a Yale guy, an incredible actor, but he was typecast for so long. And it's so nice that he actually got old and people didn't know who he was, so he could I think he's up for an Academy Award or an Emmy and whatever, and his new show, Barry. So, having that type of vision with brands, how do you let them make their choices for what they're doing today compared to what you think might be better for them in the future?
Great question. I think, look, and you must deal with this with athletes in the past, right? We were fortunate enough that I always like to be in business and to be in a position of strength. And when I busted my ass and put my kids in private school and did everything I could, so gave them opportunity and privilege and all the things that they have. With that comes the advantage of we could pick and choose the deals that we want. And for the people that are going to hear this and watch this, I get it. That's not easy, because if we were 20 years prior, we might have been doing an energy drink or something that we didn't want to do. So we've been blessed enough to be able to pick and choose the deals that we want and that speak to the girls. And then we also are able to demand creative control, because if we're going to associate our brand with another brand, we want to be respectful to their culture and their brand, but we also want to make sure it aligns with us, and that comes with just being able to say, yeah, we don't think it's right. But with that, we're always polite, and we're always we try to be the best we can. And as we get into our own things, I think that's one of the reasons why we're looking to create our own brands, because as we're walking up here, I was telling the story. There are companies that'll put up a budget and say, hey, we want Charlie D'Amelio, and then some ad guy will come in and go, oh yeah, we want you to you're the TikTok girl, do a TikTok. And I'll get the look from Charlie like, Dad, help me get it. And I'll be like, guys, maybe why don't we get some ideas from Charlie? And then normally when when both she or my daughter Dixie have creative control, because they speak to their audience and they know their audience more than an ad exec or marketing guy, it usually works out really well.
Yeah, there's that place of, and this was true with the brands that I dealt with, that you can't get outside of who you are, right? You'd rather people hate you for who you are than love you for who you're not. And we've seen it
Is that your quote?
Yeah, I think I've stolen it from someone, but it's a good one. And I don't know who said it, but look it up. There's this thing called Google, they told me.
Yeah.
So you could Google that. But whoever it is, give them credit. To that point, I'm 54 years old like you.
Oh, we're seeing me.
Yeah, you just look younger. And I did that so you make sure you feel really good. But people still hurt my feelings, right? I have, millions of people listen to the podcast. 500,000 people follow me on Instagram. And there's mean people, right? And my wife personally takes offense to it. But I will tell you, there's some people that say certain things that really hurt my feelings. And I couldn't imagine being a young girl. I have a 23, a 21, and an 18-year-old. And, beyond being able to tell you, hey, this isn't me when I'm being paid to do it, it just blows my mind how a young girl can, go ahead and do what I do and let it fall off my chest because it gets really personal. Have you been able to help them in any way deal with, the ego side of, why is this person so mean? Because I know how hard they work, right? This is, I've been around athletes, celebrities, and entertainers my entire career. It's not easy, and it's constant and consistent. And most people can't do what they do, right? Yeah. What Charlie and Dixie do, they can't. And they wouldn't be successful. Most people aren't successful because they can't do what they do. It's not just because they're beautiful. Right. It's a lot more. How do you as a father, deal with helping them with people that are just mean and unhappy?
That's probably been the hardest thing throughout this whole thing. And we understand that. I look at it from the outside and I say, it's so hard to complain when you're in our position, and you don't want to complain because there are so many incredible things. But the comments are destructive. They hurt people. We're the same age, and guys like your friend Gary Vee told us. I mean, he's so big on that, and I want to believe him that he doesn't let those things get to him. But they do, and that's one that's the hardest, because as a dad, you want to be the fixer.
Yeah,
you want to,
especially of your daughters.
It's tough. I would argue, though, Dave, that we can kind of go and look, and you click on the profile and you see they're private, or it's a fake account.
Right.
And what I would argue is the stuff that your kids may deal with in the classroom, where they actually have to look across the or walk down the hallway and see that person every day. Even though on Dixie or Charlie, it could be a negative comment could get 500,000 likes, it's kind of starts to roll off their shoulders. But I think the harder part is when you're in your hometown and you're at the game and this person doesn't like you, and it's weird, right? When we were younger, I remember I tell a story, like guy didn't like me, we'd fight it out, and I'd be at his house eating spaghetti that night, and his mom would be like, and we'd be best friends. Like, it just seems like with social media and the negativity and it could just drag on so long and be very destructive.
And the other thing that we deal with as our brands grow is our relationships, our intimate relationships with others change, because a lot of people want something from us, or we're participating in a perception that may not exist that they want something. Yeah. And that has happened to me twice in my career, as I gained great wealth when I was young, not famous or no followers back then, but I had a lot of money, which changed my relationships with people, because I had a perception that the only reason they wanted me to go to this was whatever, or they said something, oh, that's why they invited me.
Yeah.
And is there any of that has really changed for you as a father, to see less relationships because of a guarded type of atmosphere where people want so much from us? So, there's no new friends.
Yeah, I think for me, I have childhood friends. Like, I have guys I know since fourth grade. So
they're called knuckleheads, right?
Yeah, they're all. And I've actually gotten closer with them because I know we've been to war together doing silly things as kids. So these guys, and I really feel that my mom, my sister, Heidi's family, there's no jealousy in that. I do think that I know that if Charlie were here and you'd be in a TikTok video with her, you would get, it's just inevitable, right? And even we see it, and that's why in our house, we never, unless it's contractual and we're doing something, I'm never like, hey, let's get into never. And I think it's been tough for her because she always has to wonder why people want to be with her. And I think one of the things that's been great for us being in LA is they've been able to hang with kids that are going through the same thing. Yeah. And although, one kid may have more followers or less followers, they're all kind of dealing with the same thing. And they're all talking about, hey, you went back home. How are your back home friends? But Charlie has kind of done what I've done and has 3 or 4 friends in her hometown dance studio. And it's funny for here, people are like, oh, in California, people are really phony. And we don't see that because we're the flavor of the week. And we'll see, when we're not, and I pick up the phone, when people call me back. Right
considering now, you look a little bit like me, we have to deal with people liking us because of the way we look. Yeah, so we can teach our kids what it's like. Let's talk about the brand real quick. I always say when you have a bug light, use it. And we have plenty of flavors a day in the sports agency world. And that. Yes. And it could be within its season by itself. All of a sudden, there's nothing to do. Or all of a sudden, like Von Miller, everyone's begging me for deals. And then Von gets the MVP of the Super Bowl and I can't answer the phone fast enough. Yeah. No, you're going to really establish a foundation of brands that will have longevity as well as aggregate value to it. What do you see next for the brands? Where are you going with the brand company and to utilize the bug light that you have now to establish a true community that will build a brand?
Yeah, I think we tested it with, look, we're not in the situation we're in without TikTok and Charlie. That's what happened. And then as soon as I saw we have this spotlight and this platform, I didn't push Dixie, but I said, Dix, why don't you love music, get in the studio. And then she started to bubble up. And then my wife was a model and a trainer. And we got married, had kids, and that was all in the rear view mirror. And now she's on Dancing with the Stars. And I couldn't be more proud of her. And we built this formula, right? We built this formula where we created little individual brands. We told the story of each brand, but the brands were people. And now we're starting to get into this where we're deciding what products, consumer-facing products, we could market to our customer, to our fans, and have them become customers. And with that, we want to be very particular and methodical on it because we don't want it to just be, hey, you used to buy so-and-so's skincare product, now buy ours because we're just the next family in line. I would want it to be more thoughtful and then use the same thing that we've done. So we've built this with the individuals. We started off with Charlie, then Dixie, then Heidi, then we built a family channel I believe our family TikTok channel is what got the Hulu show to pick us up. And then we have a dog channel and now we're starting to do it and we're not reinventing the wheel. This is something that Barstool has done and we want our whole team around us to kind of come up with us, rising tides lift all boats. I tell this to our team all the time. We're never like, hey, we're the D'Amelios and you gotta, and I'm like, no, if you pull something where all of a sudden you're like, Barstool and you get a $30 million podcast offer, God bless you. I would be so happy. And now we're starting to take what was successful for our individual brands into consumer-facing brands, starting with our merch. And then we have a footwear company that's coming out that we're going to sell direct to consumer and maybe do a little bit of wholesaling. But now I'm starting to get into my groove of what I grew up doing. And so that's why I think my family's like, Dad's been at the office a lot lately. We just opened an office. So I'm way more passionate about this than being the TikTok dad.
NIL is a really big deal for me, and I look at it differently than the multi-million-dollar contracts that are to the biggest quarterbacks. There's an idea that you probably know better than anyone with community. And understanding an NIL to me is understanding who attracts a certain community and then utilizing that community. So for example, I'll pay the hockey captain at Harvard $200 a month to post my videos. Why? Because all the athletic directors in the Ivy Leagues, all the Wall Street guys, all of my audience, they follow him, and then I get this organic nature. How are you utilizing NIL with UConn, and I'm sure it'll expand to others, to benefit the brands and the community?
Yeah, so I looked at the same model that I looked at well, first of all, I believe, social media is the currency that we're all judged upon. You told the story about your blue check and how, I mean, honestly, if it used to be someone you'd meet, a buddy introduce you to, this guy went to Harvard, this guy went to Yale, you'd be like, wow. Now all of a sudden you go, oh, this guy's verified on Instagram and he's got 2 million followers. You're like, wow. So, I look at it like, what could I do to help these student athletes? We can't do it for everyone, but I wanted to pick a group of men and women on one or two varsity athletes, one or two Division I athletes from every sport, and find out, what their interests are and help build their personal brands. Wow. Because less than 1% are going to play pro, right? We know that, and no one on the
water polo team.
The water polo team's making it. So, but I want to do things like where we take our collective and we fly them out to LA and we bring them to Snapchat. We bring them to TikTok. We talk about help them get one of the things that all the platforms talk about is getting verified is you have to get published. So working in conjunction with the Hartford Courant in Connecticut and getting their names mentioned and doing individual stories, and then taking that content and bringing it to Instagram and go, look, this is one of our guys or gals, and through all that, putting money in their pockets and taking the brands that the brands we work with, and saying, hey, what's interesting, I don't know how it is around the rest of the country, but Connecticut passed a law where you could actually use the players could wear their jerseys. I don't think it wasn't like that.
Yeah, right.
So when they did an NFT, they had to use kind of like when I think Shaq does a Ben Gay commercial and he wears.
Do it all the time.
He doesn't
right.
wear the Lakers.
The right colors, right?
So,
you wear your number.
So I would argue to someone trying to get content out there, like you said about what you do with the kid from Harvard, I would say, I told this company, Light Tricks, that we're in the process of doing, it's a video editing software. And I said, look, I get it. You might get someone who has 100,000 followers on Instagram, but they're not going to run across the court in I want to do like the Superman video where he kind of comes where he's wearing a suit and then it transitions in and he dunks the ball in the middle of Gamble Pavilion with his UConn uniform on. Like, is that worth 10 grand? Is that worth 20 grand? If it goes viral, what is, so those are the kind of things I want to do. And I'm not a big fan of, hey, let's just get a bunch of rich guys together and let's circumvent the system and pay some kid $1 million, and it's not my thing.
Not mine either. It never was. But most of those guys were bringing in duffel bags anyway. So it just at least legitimized it for those kids, which I really do like. Well, there's so many things that we can talk about. Hopefully we'll talk about. But the one thing I've learned through the playbook is how important your family is. And that doesn't get lost on me. I get to be blessed to be around the biggest and greatest of the spirits of excellence. And what I really love learning about you is how important your family is first as a non-negotiable, and everything else is a blessing. I can see that it comes forward and through you and your frequency. So I only bless you and wish you all the greatest success. Not that you need it from me, but I can tell there's going to be even bigger and brighter things in the future for the D'Amelio family. Marc D'Amelio, thank you so much for joining me. This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs, the Playbook.